Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellowcat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Today we have new amazing stories, so subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. Tell us the work revenge story that stands out in your memory. Maybe less revenge than karmic justice. When I worked at a drug shop, the lead manager who hired me was eventually moved to another location, and the son of a recently retired East Coast Regional Vice President of Marketing for the corporation was brought in to take over the store. I left that job because of the change in management, but I still have fond memories of my time there. Now, the things going for this guy, aside from the obvious nepotism involved with his attainment of the position, in fairness, I didn't find out about his dad's role with the company until just before the conclusion of this story, but he still behaved the way you'd probably think the son of a regional vice blah 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 above would behave. Just generally lazy, entitled, expected great things from everybody else with the bare minimum offered from him, while speaking as if he, and most importantly, he had inherited perhaps the most ideal team I've ever worked with since the prior lead manager and assistant manager would stay because they were truly that brilliant at that particular job. I've worked in retail for a long time, and I've worked with a lot of different people, primarily due to the fact that they provided a fishy foreshadowing music. To begin with, regardless of who it is, I will always be willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. The above-mentioned pattern of behavior was something that we were aware of over the course of perhaps 8 to 9 months, at which point the assistant manager requested a transfer and I was considering doing the same thing. Why? Well, since I'm generally fairly pleasant and I like to bring people together as a team while still knowing my place. I realize how perfect this makes me seem, but I don't know what to tell you. Well, since I'm normally pretty nice and because I want to bring people together as a team while still understanding my place, I enjoy participating in cooperative activities and online shooters, and I got my first job in retail during the summer of 1995. At some point, our lead manager must have gotten the idea in his brain that I was conspiring to take over the company in some way. I hadn't heard it explained that way, but he clearly treated me like I was a jerk for being more likable to the staff than he was. This wasn't an issue with the prior lead manager or assistant manager, nor had it been with the management of any previous position where I'd worked. I didn't hear it explained that way, but he sure treated me like I was a jerk. Therefore, basically, because to his insecurities, he would be more critical of me for situations that were objectively inconsequential, and even one where he was actually wrong, and yes, just to be unprofessional about social BS. But he was still enough of a sleazeball to adhere to the guidelines while acting in an unethical and unprofessional manner, if that makes any sense. So, what exactly took place? A new location of the same company came up a few miles down the road, so approximately 3 or 4 of our employees decided to shift to the new location. Along with me and one buddy and coworker, an unknown number of other people have put in a transfer request or resigned to pursue other employment opportunities. As a result, almost everyone evacuated the building like it was a sinking ship, with the exception of 3 or 4 people, which represents somewhere between 20 and 25% of the staff. In any case, as a consequence of this, our lead manager was moved to a different position, who I referred to as the warden to my friends outside of work to whom I had vented about all of this. What the heck? I really don't know the official reason why this happened, since businesses have a tendency not to reveal this type of information to subordinates, but I can tell you that he had no intention of leaving the store, so I'm confident it had something to do with being incredibly unpopular with the employees there. I can tell you this because I've seen him interact with the staff. Which is wonderful news because it seems as though he would be able to act like a jerk without anyone or anything holding him accountable for his behavior. This would most definitely do the trick. He is the lead manager at some other shop, so it's not like he was kicked to the curb, but this is definitely an encounter that he will not forget in a hurry. We have a new super micromanager in charge of the company. He asked that he review everything we touched in detail. There were 6 of us working together in this unit, and he was completely unaware of the amount of work that came through every week. We decided to work together in teams of 2 and devise a strategy to engulf him in paper. Even a cover page with a variety of subject areas and checkboxes was produced by our team specifically for your perusal and other purposes. Every day, we waited until he had left for the day before piling all of our casework, pieces from trade journals, and even spam mail advertising potential training opportunities onto his desk. He immediately became overwhelmed, but the answer he came up with was to lock the door to his office. We simply gathered some carts from the loading dock and stacked them in front of his entrance. Because so many individuals were curious about the status of the work that we were carrying out, we were forced to devise a secondary survey. Therefore, he now had multiple copies of this same work on his desk, but he was asking for status updates on his initial review, which he could see we had also forwarded to the units requesting for our assistance. In addition, he was asking for our assistance. The fact that the 2 members of the team who didn't participate in the initial process started their own procedure because they believed that we were making them seem terrible by being so accommodating with the new guy's request was, in my opinion, the best aspect of the situation. After a few weeks, it got to be such a mess that he had no choice but to ask for our assistance in sorting things up. He was only there for a little over half a year when he decided to move on and accept a position with another company. Tell me about the most ludicrous experience you have with an HOA. My own is very reasonable, but we had to pay a fee since our rear screen door had a tear in it. One evening, the wind was particularly strong, and as a result, our grill toppled over, creating a hole in the screen. I did allow it to continue for a couple of months before I moved the screen door in the garage in an attempt to address the problem. Because it was winter, we didn't really need to use the door anyway. I repaired or replaced the screen in the spring. There was another occasion when there was a lot of wind, and I noticed that some of my neighbors' siding was falling off, so I gave them a call to find out who was responsible for calling roofers, us or them. It turned out that if we didn't do anything to our roof, it was their obligation regardless of what happened. A few weeks later, the roofing contractors came to look at all of our homes. The one and only time we truly had a problem, we received a notice in the mail informing us that we were being penalized due to the curtains in our home. Because my wife detests the vertical blinds, we changed them out for red curtains that reached the floor when we moved here. Now, 4 years later, we're being fined for the change. She gives them a call and asks what colors we have available to choose from, but when she reads the guidelines, she notices that there's no mention of color whatsoever. It stated that we were not allowed to bring in any national flags or newspapers, and that we were also required to bring something to block the windows. Again, there's no mention of the requirement for a particular hue. After fighting the fine for 2 months, we finally won our case and were able to keep the curtains. Simply left an unpleasant aftertaste on our lips. Now that we own the townhouse, the Homeowners Association is in charge of everything that happens within its 4 walls. They take care of everything that is outside the walls of the property, so I don't have to worry about mowing the lawn in the summer or clearing the snow in the winter. The shrubs are trimmed on a regular basis, and they even replaced the tree in front of our house after one of our neighbors hit it with their vehicle. Every alternate year, the blacktop on the driveway is replaced, and the annual inspection of the fire alarm system takes place when the majority of us are home. For a number of years, we were under the need to maintain residents throughout the week and during the day, or else we had to pay them to return. The lot that was going to be used for our clubhouse was sold to a resident so that they could build a home there. They were about halfway through the building when they realized their error and attempted to get back their property. The guy sues them in court, and he has no trouble winning. Coincidentally, about this time, we submitted our request to construct a modest swing set and fort combo in the backyard for my children, and we were granted permission to do so. There were no issues, and approval came quickly. 2 years have passed, and there is still neither a clubhouse nor a pool. As I browse over the HOA information for the coming year, I've noticed that they plan to increase the fees we pay for our pool care. When I go back over the past 2 years, I realize that they've been billing me maintenance fees for a pool and clubhouse that have never existed. They have hidden this information into the drudgery of all of the information, and I've never spotted it. At the next meeting of the Homeowners Association, I want to inquire as to the whereabouts of all the funds for the clubhouse and pool that do not already exist. You will be ignored. Even when you yell it out, no one will listen. Even if you ask really loudly, you'll get kicked out. After 1 month, I received a letter informing me that my swing set had never been approved, that I owed a fine of $500, and that I had 30 days to remove it. Stopping by the office with my original letter of approval for it, I am told that it looks fake and then instructed to leave the building. We were fortunate enough to have a buddy who's an attorney who was able to help us sort it out. In essence, we warned them to back off or we would drag them into lawsuit over everything that's ever happened and would ever happen till the end of time. Please file a motion due to the malfunctioning front gate. There's a problem with the back gate. Please submit a motion. Please submit a motion because we do not approve of the new flowers that you planted. It seemed inconceivable. They quickly took a step back. I couldn't stand those dirty old women. It wasn't me, it was my boss. A drunk driver caused the accident that resulted in the death of my boss's wife while she was out jogging a few years ago. In the neighborhood where they resided, the homeowners association had a reputation for being a bit ambivalent about everything that had to do with maintenance and for charging exorbitant fines to residents for even the tiniest of offenses, which might be an exaggeration. It appears that they had been contacting him multiple times over the course of about a week, but both my boss and his wife were busy before his wife passed away, and it is evident that my boss was too overcome with grief to answer after her death. My employer was the one who took the phone from them a few days or so after she passed and answered the call. The representative introduces himself saying, "Hello, this is D-Butt from the HOA," to which my superior responds, "Yes." I inquire, "Is this boss?" My boss's response to the representative's question, "Is wife available?" was, "No, she passed away earlier this week in an accident." Without skipping a beat, the representative responds, "Oh, I'm sorry. Well, the reason I'm calling is that over the course of the last several months, we've observed a few instances that violate the rules." "What?" my superior asked, sounding somewhat perplexed by my response. The representative said, "Yes, sir, I'm afraid we have to fine you $75 for 2 infractions. 1, we noticed the grass is too tall, and 2, wife's car was seen parked in the street, which is prohibited." My superior completely lost it and started yelling things like, "Who the F are you? What the are you talking about? Did you not understand what I said?" On and on until the sales representative was able to slip in, "If you would like to defer the payment," which only exacerbated the intensity and length of the subsequent assault on the customer. The representative abruptly terminated the call after his final words to the individual were, "F you a-hole, get your supervisor." He stepped away for a moment, and then a short while later he got in touch with them again. He was able to speak with a manager who expressed his most remorse, assured him that any potential penalties would be waived, and promised to look into the matter. To make a long story short, the gentleman was terminated in the most severe manner. It was then discovered that he was a D-head of weapons-grade caliber with many complaints lodged against him. My boss had moved since then and maintains that particular neighborhood's HOA is the scummiest cesspool of sociopaths to ever exist and that he's glad he's out. We filed a lawsuit against the HOA for over $200,000 since the water line that supplied the neighborhood's entire water supply passed directly underneath our home. After noticing a leak in our garden, we heard cracking sounds coming from the walls as if the home were about to collapse. We brought it up several times, and the president continued to assert that it was condensation from the AC unit, which is correct given that this causes gallons of water to pool in the backyard. Because the house was becoming worse and the water pooling was getting worse, we decided to engage a structural engineer to come check it out, and then we contacted a piping company to come check out what was going on with the pipes. Yes, the pipe had a leak, and our home was built on a massive swimming pool that had formed underground. The president arrived on the scene and commanded the bagpipers to depart. We were forced to acquire a restraining order in order to keep him out of our yard because if we didn't, he would keep coming in. The cost to repair our home and the broken water pipe was well over $200,000 total. We filed a lawsuit against the board for the damages that their incompetence caused, arguing that they could have avoided the lawsuit if they had just listened to us and resolved the issue many years earlier when we first became aware of it. After winning the lawsuit, we were able to sell the house. We also ran for a seat on the board before we sold the house and won just as an FU. Guys, thank you for all the support and likes. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. See you next time.